Welcome you back in geological knowledge. So as in the previous 2-3 lectures we have discussed very important topic, that is igneous rock or igneous petrology, and significantly we have discussed also some very important and very significant questions related to the texture as well as the texture as well as the composition of igneous rocks. And basically our focus was to understand the how the major texture of igneous rocks, how they are formed, and what are their examples as well as the types in which they can be included at. Okay, so in the continuation of that series, today we will discuss another very important topic related to igneous petrology, that is the forms of igneous rock bodies. Okay, and from the exam point of view, if I talk, so this topic is very important. The questions are generally asked from these areas, especially in the BHU PET and in JAM exam also. Okay, so let's start our discussion. So this MCQ that is based on the forms of igneous rocks, and this will be the first part of that series. So let's start our first question. So that deals with the forms of igneous rocks where magma is injected and cooled along the planes of host rock is known as. So before we understand this or discuss this particular question, we must understand some basics. So the forms of igneous rocks, they are basically divided in two types: the extrusive rock bodies or extrusive igneous forms, or the intrusive igneous forms. So if we talk about extrusive igneous rock bodies, so these are formed from the magma poured out at the earth's surface because of the magmatic activity or the formation of magma that takes place in the interior of the earth. So whenever that magma, that process which erupts or which helps or which provides its impetus to erupt onto the earth's surface, that is not part of our discussion, that we will discuss in another video. But the magma which is generally generated in the interior of the earth, especially in the mantle, so that is poured out on the surface of the earth. So the rock bodies which are formed by this process, these are known as extrusive igneous bodies. And extrusive and intrusive, you all know, if I am talking extrusive, so extrusive means out of the surface, okay, and intrusive means in the surface, means in the interior of the earth, okay, and extrusive means out of the surface or the exterior of the earth, okay. And the best example is lava flows, okay. Lava flows of basaltic, especially the lava flow is generally basaltic, so that is the best example for the extrusive igneous bodies. And another very significant type, that is intrusive igneous rock bodies. So intrusive, as you can guess from the term, intrusive means which are formed by the consolidation of magma in the depth, okay, in the interior of the earth, because of some magmatic activity or the formation of magma that takes place because of the consolidation of magmatic material in the earth surface, in the interior of the earth surface, okay, and especially at some depth or some depth at the earth surface. So these are known as intrusive igneous rock bodies. And such rock bodies generally they show little bit of variations in their shape as well as size, okay, since they are forming in the interior of the earth. So if suppose if A rock is there or B rock is there, or if we talk about the minerals, so suppose a mineral A that has got enough space for the formation of that mineral, so that particular mineral, so that mineral will be finer or coarser in size, its size will be bigger. But if I talk about mineral B, so if that mineral has got less time or the less space for the formation of that particular mineral, so its formation or its size will be finer and small in size, okay. So that's why the rock bodies which are forming in the intrusive of the earth, So they show considerable variation in their shape as well as the sizes. And the best example of intrusive igneous rock bodies, they are stocks, batholith, sills, dikes. Okay, that is the today's focus. Our focus will be to discuss all these intrusive as well as the exclusive igneous bodies. And the intrusive igneous rock bodies, they are further classified into two groups: the discordant as well as the concordant igneous bodies. So what are the discordant and concordant bodies? So discordant means which are, or the discordant igneous rock bodies can be classified as which cut through the overlying strata. Discordant means they cut vertically sometimes through the strata, and the best example being batholith or the stock and dike. And if we talk about the concordant bodies, so concordant bodies, they are formed lie in between the rock beds. Okay, and such bodies do not show transgressive relationship to the rocks they invade. And the best example of concordant igneous rock bodies, that is lapolith, locolith and sills. Okay, so that was some basic, and I repeatedly been saying, I say in each and every video, that is basics is very important for you to understand, because once you understood the basic part of a particular topic, then it will be very easy for you to understand the next topic, okay, or the tougher topics. Okay, so now we come back to our question, that form of igneous rock when magma is injected and cooled along the planes of host rock is known as discordant rock bodies, concordant bodies, parallel bodies or the synchronous bodies. So now you can easily answer this question. These forms of rock bodies where magma is injected and cooled along the plane of the host rock. Okay, not across. If it had been across the planes of host rock, then it could have been discordant. But since they have cooled along the planes of host rock, so along means together, okay, in parallel with. And we have discussed in the definition, that is the concordant igneous rock bodies are those which lie between the rock beds. Okay, and they don't possess any type of transgressive relationship to the rocks they invade. So all those intrusions in which the magma has been injected and cooled along or parallel to the structural planes of the host rock, they are known as concordant rock bodies. Okay, so here the correct option is option B, concordant bodies. Next one is, pick the type of concordant body among the following. Concordant means you have to keep in mind that the basic differences, that is concordant rock bodies, they will be parallel, okay, or along the host rock, and the discordant, they will be sometimes vertical and across the rock bed. Okay, so pick the type of concordant body among the following: batholith, extrusion, dikes as well as the phacolith. So we have talked already, that is the sills, lapolith, phacolith or the lopolith. These are the best examples of concordant igneous rock bodies. So the various types of concordant bodies are sills, phacolith, lapolith as well as the lopolith. Okay, and whereas the batholith, in extrusion or the dikes, these are the example of discordant igneous rock bodies. Third one is the type of concordant body whose thickness is much smaller than its length and width is known as. You have to understand the terminology, that what is the, sometimes the answer is hidden in the question itself. The only thing is required is to just read that question patiently. Okay, the type of concordant body whose thickness is much smaller means its thickness is smaller than the length and width. Options are sill, phacolith, dike as well as the D option is lacolith. Okay, so its option is sill. Okay, so it's a typical of sill that their thickness is much small than their width. okay, width as well as the length, and moreover this body commonly thins out or the tapers along its outer margin, okay. Or in other terms we can define, so a sill can be defined a seat like igneous rock body which generally runs parallel to the bedding planes of the pre-existing rock strata, and they may be horizontal, inclined or vertical depending upon the attitude of the strata in which they are intruded, okay. So there is its mechanism also, that whether the rock formation has taken place firstly or the intrusion has taken place firstly. So in most of the cases firstly the rock will form and then the intrusion will take place, okay. But this is not a hard and fast rule that it will take place only in that manner. Sometimes intrusion can take place already, then the rock will form, okay. So that is another process, or that is another topic. We are not going to the details of that topic, but you have to keep in mind that the sill, they can be horizontal, inclined, and sometimes they can be vertical also. And why they can be in all these patterns? Depending upon the attitude of the strata in which they are the intruded, or the parent rock, okay. So depending upon the attitude of the parent rock in which they are being intruded, so depending upon that parameters they can be inclined, horizontal or vertical also, and they vary in thickness, okay, from a few centimeters, and they range up to several hundreds of meters, but they are always thin as compared to their length, okay. So that is given in the question. So now we have discussed the whole definition and your answer is hidden in the question, okay. So there they vary in thickness from few centimeters to several hundred meters, but they are always thin as compared to their length, okay, along the beds. And sills are commonly made up of dolerite and basalt. So if you have done geological maps in BSc first year and second year or in third year also, you would have seen in the geological structural maps that there are dolerites and basalts, okay. So sills are generally made up of dolerite and basalt, okay. So that is at all, or that is in a nutshell about the sills, okay. And I think question will be asked from all the details we have discussed, okay. The important factors about the sills we have discussed, and if question is asked from sill, you can easily now answer this question, okay. So the correct option here is, now you easily can answer that question, option A, sill is the right one. Next one is the upper and the lower margin of sills are relatively. The upper as well as the lower margin of sills, they are relatively coarser grains, medium grain size, finer grain in size, or can be of any size. So the upper as well as the lower margin of sill, they commonly show comparatively fine grain size than their interior portions, okay. As I have already told, that is the mechanism of its formation, that is not our topic of discussion today. So just you keep in your mind, that is the upper as well as the lower margin of sill, they commonly show a comparatively fine grained or the finer grain size than their interior portion, okay. So here option C is the right one. Next one is, here there is a statement given here and you have to answer it out whether it's true or false. So sills in length are restricted to hundreds of meters. Sills in length are restricted to hundreds of meters. Whether this option is true or false. So this is false. Actually we have talked already that in length the sills may vary from a few centimeters to few hundreds of meters, as we have discussed, okay. Sills vary in thickness from few centimeters to few hundred meters, but they are always thin as compared to their length along the beds, okay. And that's same in given here. In length the sills may vary from a few centimeters to hundreds of meters, and minor as well as the local projections from big sills, they may rise above into the overlying strata, okay. So the statement that sills in length are restricted to hundreds of meters only, so that is wrong. Okay. Next one is, or sixth one is, most common rock composing the sills are known as marbles, gabbros, shales, or the granites. So that is gabbro. We have talked about, that is dolerite, basalt, and gabbro. These are the important rock bodies. So the most common rock composing the sills are intermediate and the basic igneous rocks. So any rock in the composition as in the range of intermediate to basic igneous rocks, they can be likely to be the sills. Okay, and the most important being the syenites as well as the gabbros, and they may show aphanitic as well as the porphyritic texture also. Okay, so the point which you have to keep in mind, that is the intermediate and basic igneous rock bodies. Okay, these are the host rock, or the most common rock composing the sills, that is the intermediate and the basic igneous rock. So correct option here is option C, gabbro. Okay, so I'm not talking about only this particular question. In this particular question you can easily delete it out the known options. You know that is marble, that is not a igneous rock. Shale, that is also not a igneous rock. So granite and gabbro, these two options are remaining. As I have told that intermediate and basic igneous rock, so obviously that could have been gabbro only. So don't go into the particular option. Okay, the question can be asked in a different way, but the concept being the same, concept doesn't change in any exam point of view. Okay, so the correct option here is option C. Next one is, the small sized intrusives that occupy bends in the folds are called as. So just read the, or just have a look on the question twicely if you are not understanding the sentence in one attempt. Okay, because sometimes I have already told that the answer is hidden only in the question. Sometimes the only thing required is to just have a proper look at the proper reading. So the small sized intrusive that occupy bends in the folds are called as sills, lapolith, locolith, or the phacolith. So you can answer this question only if you know the definitions of particular intrusive bodies. Okay, option is here is phacolith, as you can see in the description box, but you must understand the definitions of lopolith, phacolith, or the lacolith. So lacolith, I am telling you some key points from where, or the trick from where you can understand. So lacolith, as you can see in lacolith, the C is there and the next letter in that alphabet, that is D. Okay, so lacolith, that is in dome sized. Okay, in the shape of a dome. Okay, and lopolith, in lopolith P is there. So in the alphabet P is followed by P, Q, R, S, or P then S. So saucer shaped. Okay, so lacolith, dome shape, and lopolith, that is saucer shaped. And sills, you know, these are the horizontal. Okay, and the remaining, what is remaining now? Phacolith. So if I talk about this particular question, now you can answer easily that is phacolith is the right answer. Okay, but suppose you don't know the definition of this particular topic, so then obviously you will have to go for the definition part, only then you can answer it out. Okay, but if the question is asked in the examination, you have to just go for that keyword, that is for the lacolith, dome shaped, and for the lopolith, that is saucer shaped. Okay, saucer shaped means concave inwards. Okay, but what is phacolith? So phacolith are crescent shaped bodies of igneous rocks, and they occupy crest and the troughs of the folded strata. So if you understand the definition, now you can pinpoint, or you can search that typical word, the keyword, that is occupy bends in the folded strata, as the same is the given in the question itself. Okay, So they are the igneous rock bodies which occupy the crest as well as the troughs of folded strata, and phaccoliths are formed when the igneous material that invades the folded region, and the igneous material accumulates at the crest and troughs of the folds, because these are the zones of minimum stress. Okay, why the material accumulates at the crest and the troughs of the folded regions? Because they are the regions of, or the zones of minimum stress. Okay, and phaccolith as well as the laccolith, these two are the major host rock bodies, or the major host rock body is intrusive for the oil. Okay, for the petroleum reserve. So most of the oil that is occupied in this saucer shaped or the folded regions. Okay, so now you can easily answer this question. As you can see in the description box, the phaccoliths are concordant small sized intrusions that occupy positions in the trough as well as the crest of bends called as folds. Okay, so correct option here is option D, that is phaccolith. Next question is, the concordant bodies associated with the structural basins are known as sills, lopolith, laccolith, or the phaccolith. So as I have already told that is saucer shape that will be concave inwards. Okay, so lopolith or the lopolith can be defined as a saucer shaped concordant igneous rock body which is bent downwards into a basin like structure or basin like shape, and in diameter it's usually 10 to 20 times its thickness. Okay, 10 to 20 times its thickness, and thus lopolith are very much larger than the laccolith. So this is also a fact, that is the lopolith, these are very much larger in size than the laccolith, and the composition of lopolith is commonly basic in nature. Okay, and same is written in the description box. As you can see, those igneous rock intrusions or igneous intrusions which are associated with the structural basins that are sedimentary beds inclined towards a common center, they are termed as lopolith, and they may form huge bodies of consolidated magma. Okay, so here the correct option is option B, that is lopolith. And next one is, the shape, arc, or the dome is shown by which type of concordant body? Okay, now you can answer. The dome shape, as I have already told, that is shape of arc or dome shape, so that will be laccolith. Options are sills, laccolith, lopolith, phaccolith, same options, but the option is laccolith. So laccolith, these are the concordant intrusions due to which they invade in the invaded strata, they have been arced up or deformed into a dome like structure, and the igneous mass itself has a flat or the concave base as well as the dome shaped top. So its top is like a dome, and its base or its igneous mass itself has a flat or the concave base. Okay, so for the exam point of view, you have to just keep in mind the key terms: the dome, the saucer shape, and the folded stratas. Okay, or if you talk about the definition of laccoliths, so they are lens shaped intrusive rock bodies, igneous body, which causes the overlying beds to arc in a form of a dome, and it has a flat base as well as the domed top. Okay, and a laccolith that may be 2 to 3 kilometers in diameter and several hundred meters in thickness, and it differs from a batholith in being much smaller as well as having a known floor. Okay, so correct option here is option C. Next one is, what is the type of lava which leads to the formation of laccolith? Viscous, partially crystallized, non-viscous, or the gaseous lava. So laccolith are formed when the magma being injected in is considered considerably viscous in form, viscous so that it's unable to flow and spread for a greater distances, and instead it gets collected in the form of a heap, okay, about the uh, orifice of an eruption, okay. So that is viscous in nature. And why viscous? Because if we talk about the formation of laccoliths, so they form when the magma being injected that is considerably viscous in form. Only then it will be unable to flow. Okay, viscous material that will not flow easily, or that is unable to flow and spread for a greater distances, and instead it gets collected in the form of a heap. Okay, so the correct option here is option A, that is viscous in nature. Next one is, what is the type of laccolith in which fracture is formed? Dike, bismuth, batholith, or the volcanic neck? So extreme type of laccolith which are called bismuths, and in these the overlying strata that gets ultimately fractured at the top of the dome because of the continuous injection from the below. Okay, so how these bismuths are formed? So these are extreme type of laccolith, okay, and which are generally collected, or which are generally, so this extreme type of laccoliths that are called bismuths, and these are overlying strata, they get ultimately fractured at the top of the dome because of the continuous injection from the below. The magmatic material that gets injected, that has been continuously been injected from the below, so that's why they they get a shape like a bismuth. Okay, so correct option here is option C, that is bismuth. And the last question of today's discussion is, a sill is not considered to be the sill when two or more injections of different types of magma are involved. So there is a statement that is, a sill is not considered to be a sill when two or more injections of different types of magma are involved. So you have to tell whether it's true or false. So the composite sills, they are the sills which results from the two or more injections of the different types of magmas, and hence it cannot be told that it's not a sill, instead it's a type of sill. Okay, so the statement given, that is wrong. Okay, so false statement it is. So this was our discussion about some other very important questions related to the igneous petrology, and basically from the forms of the igneous rock bodies. Okay, as we have already talked about, that these are the very important question from the exam point of view, because you know that in BHU PET or in JAM also, the questions which are asked generally, they are from the general topics. General topics means the formation of the structures, the textures, or as well as the some other composition of the igneous rocks. So the questions which will be asked in the examination, so that will be of the same type. Okay, means their level will not be too tough for one to understand. If one has understood the topic thoroughly, then it will be very easy for one to answer that particular question. Okay, and in the next video we will talk about some other igneous rock bodies. Okay, thank you.